All right, guys. Injury report. We got Jaron Christian, DMP. He'll be doubtful for Sunday. And Dontrell Inman was a DMP. He'll also be doubtful. Everyone else was a full participant will not be listed on game status.
Ben, you can go. I don't think Chris is
on. Hey, Ron, with regards then to Inman, how does that kind of shape your wide receiver room for Sunday? And obviously, we've seen Steven Sims out there the last few days. So how does he possibly factor in?
Well, we'll see. Again, I don't have to talk to you guys about Steven because he's not active yet. But, we'll have to mix and match and figure out best way to go. But, we've got some guys we feel pretty comfortable with.
And I'm just curious, it's only been a couple weeks since you guys played the Giants, but Daniel Jones in that last game against Tampa Bay had similar to Kyle Allen, had a drive late in the game when they needed a touchdown to more or less tie the game. He was able to get that. How have you seen him progress even just since that game you guys just played a couple weeks ago?
Oh, every time he's on the field, he's going to make strides, guys. This is a young quarterback who's, going into his second season as their starter. And every opportunity he gets, the better he'll get. And that's just kind of it right now. He's been in Joe's system for 2 seasons now. And so we'll see how it he's been in Joe's system for a season. So I think the more he's in it, the better he's going to get eventually.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron, you're about halfway through the season now. Do you feel like you see an identity for this team yet? Do you have one in your mind? Is there one?
Nope. I think we're still a young football team. We're still reaching, trying to find out who we are. I do know we've got some solid groups, some solid positional groups. We have some potential for some really good unit stuff, but we'll see. And again, an identity is something you just don't tag and say, "Oh, this is who you are." You got to go out and play it. So, and when we're like you said, we're barely halfway, and we'll see what comes out of this as we go forward.
Is that something that could come by the end of, say, the season, or is that going to be something that evolves over maybe a couple of years?
Well, it could come at the end of the year. It could come in the next couple of weeks. It could evolve. I mean, and again, it's based on certain things. First, to me, it's based on winning, and then the attitude in which you play with.
Thanks.
JP here.
It's not Mike. You're up.
Yeah, I'll roll ahead. You had mentioned the other day about practicing in the heat in Carolina. It's kind of the opposite problem here where it's going to get really cold when we get into December. Will you still practice outdoors or will you move inside at that point?
Well, yeah, it was cold in December in Carolina too. So, we'll practice. If we can practice outside, we'll practice outside. And some of it also depend on whether we're playing in a dome stadium or not too. That's the other thing we'll take into account. And see how it goes. But again, if it's really about the footing and the surface. If the footing, the surface is good outside, then we'll stay outside as long as we don't risk anybody getting injured.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Ron, I see you're wearing the J.D. McKissic shirt again today. On the field, how has he helped your offense, and how have you seen his role grow throughout the season?
Well, I think the biggest thing with JD is you see his versatility. You see it as a receiver. You see it as a runner. And he's a quality back. I think the thing that, he's showing is that he can be a first, second, and third down guy. Do you want him touching the ball, 30 times a game? Probably not, because you don't want him to take the type of pounding, but you want the ball in his hands as much as possible. But I do think he is a quality football player.
Hey, Ron, when you guys have young guys miss time, Antonio, Sadiq, Steven, Cole, does that prevent you from establishing the core that you want, or does that allow you to evaluate other guys, or maybe both?
Both. It helps you to evaluate the other guys. I mean, if Steven Sims doesn't get hurt, we don't get to find out what the potential is for Isaiah Wright. And so that's the thing that we look at is when you don't get guys on the field, okay, what's the backlash or what's the counter to that? Well, the counter to Steven is getting a chance to watch Isaiah. We get to watch Tony Brown. We get to watch Jeff Badet. I mean, these are guys that came in late, Badet and Brown, and both guys have played for us. Both guys have flashed a little bit, so they've gotten our attention. And that's the thing that you have to be able to do. And that's why I said, we got like between 25 and 28 guys 1, 2, and 3 years of experience that are out there playing for us. And I think that bodes well as you go into your futures, that you can say, hey, man, we've seen these guys on tape. We've seen these guys could potentially be part of our core as we build our football team. Or you can say, hey, you know what, maybe we need to move away from these guys. Maybe we need to think about, and again, and it's been pointed out, we haven't had, who we felt going into the season you wanted as your core. So that's the tough part about guys getting hurt.
And for you, I know we talked, I think 4 weeks ago, you were saying you wanted to give Bryce's knee a little bit of time off. I wonder if you're still hopeful that this season he could return, or if you're looking long term.
No,
Okay.
we are. We're hopeful. He's had a couple of really good days with the trainers, and I think it's getting close to getting him back out there. Again, he was really having a really good camp. He got sore for a little bit, and we just felt we rest him, to be quite honest. He's taken advantage of it. He's done a lot of good things in the training room, and it's an opportunity for us to get him back out on the field. Is coming soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Ron, I know it's only been a few days of practice with Robert Foster, but what have you seen from him so far, and how do you think he can help the receivers?
Well, you see the speed. I can tell you that much. And it's not just necessarily helping the receiving core, but he's a heck of a special teamer. He's got some kickoff return ability. He's got some kick coverage ability. He's a gunner. So this is a guy that's multifaceted. And the biggest thing for him will be whether or not he's learning, and that's what we're hoping, is that he's learning our system. We're integrating him right now a lot of because we got a lot of guys who are still banged up. But you see the long speed, and that's one of the things that we've been talking about. We've been looking for is somebody that can go out and complement Terry's speed on the other side. So we'll see. I mean, right now he's not ready to go, but we do see that.
And on a completely different topic, just with everything that's going on in a country outside of football, has there been much back and forth with the players on election stuff, especially with it spanning a few days?
No, it really hasn't, to be honest. I mean. The conversation really was when seeing guys on Tuesday that had come in, that was the conversation, but I really haven't heard it or seen it since then. It was interesting though, the conversations I had prior to where we are now, but it's kind of died down, and I think the guys are, kind of just focusing in on getting ready for Sunday.
Thanks.
Heather's not on, so Kyle, you can go.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Ron. With Kyle Allen, where have you seen, even just in the few games he's been able to play, where have you seen the growth in his game?
Well, you see decision making. You probably see a little bit more consistency. The only thing that we've seen that that we've been concerned about, obviously, have been turning the ball over. I mean, if you go back and look at the 3 games that he's played for us, and you would probably say, God, he's done some really good things, with the exception of turning the ball over. So again, to him, it's just about protecting the football and continue to make those good decisions.
And then looking at the Giants, they seem to have a pretty good power run game. Do you feel like that? And if so, why?
Right now I know they're struggling with the run game because they just didn't have the health with their running backs. That's probably the biggest thing. And probably obviously their biggest threat to run is their quarterback. That's probably the biggest thing is we've got to make sure we're gap sound, and that we are playing our techniques, and we have if you're assigned the quarterback, you got the quarterback.
Thank you.
All right, John.
Rihanna?
Hey, Ron, I've noticed the last 2 days that you guys have had music playing throughout practice, and I'm curious, like, with your 35 years, what is the importance of having the balance of, like, having guys be loose and kind of have fun, but also that seriousness? I feel like, a lot of people really want to see the seriousness when you're 2-5 team, but I see the levity. How important is that balance for a young team right now?
Right. First, you got to tell everybody to relax. This, like you said, Bree, this is a new era. These guys, they have music playing their entire day. And it starts from high school to college to where we are today in the NFL. Now we play it. We only play it during warm-ups and individual. And then once we get started, now we're focusing back in on the game. That's really what we're doing. So we give them an opportunity while they are loosening up, while they are getting warmed up, while they're going through individual. That's when we'll play it. But again, as I said, once we get started, we cut it off once we get into our actual situational football. And as I said, when you go visit some of these colleges and you get a chance to glimpse their spring ball. Most of these schools, that music starts the second these guys get on the field to the second they step off. It's amazing, and it's kind of carried over to our game.
And then I'm just very curious about your evaluation process. You guys have brought in some guys like a Logan Thomas who's had some success. JD McKissic, at least going into the bye week, was number 8 in terms of receiving yards as a running back. You guys have just brought in a number of guys who've been able to be very helpful. I'm kind of curious, do you guys feel good, like at the bye week, looking at basically the guys that you've brought in, one, in establishing the culture, but then two, like how productive they've been, little name people that were little name guys to other people, but you guys could see the potential.
Yes, and it's interesting because, as we go through the evaluation process and we look at guys, those are the kind of guys that you do look for, the guys that not necessarily overlooked, but like in JD's, situation, circumstances, he was part of a group of backs. And when you took his number of touches and you saw, God, if he got, X amount of touches more, he'd be even more productive. So that's what excites you about a guy like that. You look at a guy like Logan and you see the height, weight, size, speed, and all that, and you go, wow, this guy's got the athletic fit for what you want. But he's still learning, and there's the potential for growth. And that, and in talking with Pete Haynard, our tight end coach, that's what he saw, the potential for growth. And that's what you're looking for is, you're looking for the guy that's on the cusp, that's ready to take the next step, that really hasn't had quite the opportunity to take that next step. I got that from when I was in Carolina. Dave Gettleman was the GM, and we talked about, finding those guys that were right on the cusp. And if you go back and look at our 2013 team, we had a number of those guys that were on the cusp. Mike Mitchell at safety, and we had some guys. We had guys at corners. We had offensive line. I mean, guys that just were right there, but never really had gotten that amount of time. And that's kind of what we looked for, and we found that. And we've been very fortunate, especially when you use the guys you mentioned with JD and Wes Schweitzer's another guy to throw a name out, that you look at and say, oh, there's a guy that did a good job. KPL, Ken Pierre-Louis on one of our linebackers. I mean, you look at these guys and you say, God, these guys are right on the cusp, and all they needed was a little bit of an opportunity.
Take two more, Olivia and Matt.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, Ree.
Hey, Ron. You talk about this being a young football team, and it's, I'm sure, tough to instill change in young football players. What's one thing from the defense to the offense to maybe the receivers that you've changed, that they've changed on the football field and you've been impressed with in the last weeks?
Right. The biggest thing, Olivia, and not necessarily when you got a bunch of young guys, it's about change, but it's really about establishing how you do it. Now, that is the change, is that, okay, hey, guys, for first and second year guys, hey, we're going to do it this way. Well, that's the change, is that we're no longer doing it the way that it was done here. We're going to do it this way. That's the only real change. And getting these guys to accept it and buy into it, that's what our task is with the young guys. It's the older guys that you really have to change, the guys that have been there 5, 6, 7 years, and say, okay, hey, get past that and start looking at this, and this is what's going to be done. This is how you're going to do it, and that's it. For most of those guys, first, second, third year guys, this is just something new. This is something different. This is where the change is. For the older guys, there's a lot of habits that have been ingrained. Those are the things where the change has to come. But for the young guys, Olivia, I think it's really about getting them to buy into the way that you want it done now.
All right, thanks, Ron.
Alrighty.
Matt Paris, last one. Matt's not on. Anyone else want to hop in? If not,
can I steal it away? We're going to talk to Travell Wharton here next. I just wonder if you could maybe talk about your experiences with him and what led you to want to bring him onto the staff here when you got this job.
When I got to Carolina, Travell was still playing and playing at a very high level. He left in free agency the next year, but then we got him back in 2013. And what I really like is his commitment to the game. I love his approach and his attitude to things. He's very soft-spoken, but don't mistake that for weakness. Just understand that he knows what he's talking about. He had a double-digit career. I think it was 11 years. And what happened was Travell actually did an internship for us probably about 5 years ago, I think it was. Then went to the University of South Carolina, his alma mater, and went there as a graduate assistant. they had a coaching shakeup, and he became the O-line coach. When we lost Ray Brown, who went to Arizona, we brought Travell in as the full-time assistant, and he's been with us ever since. Very smart, very bright young man. He's got a bright future in coaching, in my opinion, just because he's committed to the game and he works very hard at it.